standing by here, Wil Castro, Senator Wil Castro, candidate for Congress, and former Congressman Robert Underwood. Good morning. I hope it smells like Clorox wipes in there as we had our sanitizing duendes all over the KUM News Zoom room. Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning. Buenos dias.
Let's just jump right into it, guys. And this is kind of a little off topic, but totally on topic for this morning anyway. What do you guys make of this latest executive order and the decision to ease more restrictions and allow more businesses to reopen while we're also seeing this surge of positive cases? Go ahead.
Congressman?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think Senator Terlahi's assessment was pretty good. Is that actually the more information we have, maybe the more understanding we'd have of it, and what seems to be not well connected could probably be better connected. And that's really it's always accurate information that really resolves a lot of doubts and concerns. And I think the more information we get, the more understanding we'd have of it. It doesn't seem well connected, but maybe there's a logic behind it, and maybe there's a reasoning behind it. And so the more information we'd have, the better opportunity we'd have to understand it.
Accurate information. That's my favorite kind of information.
That's right. Yeah. And, I'm going to talk about accurate information.
Okay, Will, let's go, Will. Senator Will.
Chris, I sound like a broken record. We're in the second trimester of the coronavirus, okay? And back in March and April, I said two things, and it didn't take a scholar to say this. First, use the planning mechanism that worked in the past. I offered the civilian military task force as a great example for a whole of government approach to get us. This is not just about the virus, and clearly they're seeing that now. The second issue is get the first line of defense and people who are able to talk to us. That would be the mayors. And at the time, because it was fresh, the initial PCOR 1 lockdown was fresh, my son was still engaged in sports and those discussions. Get with the coaches and other community leaders. So that's one part. Then I went on record in writing to ask for that additional data before we start using this mobile app. I mean, you can send it to the university, they can do cross tabulations, and I know public health is now collecting that data. But I look at it at the reverse engineering. Why is it that you're locking the rest of us down? And then there's MilCon going on. And we know the greatest proliferation of the virus initially came from military personnel and civilian military contractors, at least the construction side. We know this for a fact. It's not hyperbole. And so with that known, what else can we do to allow the people to go back to work? Because while one person is afraid to contract the virus, another family can't even feed themselves. And so I think the data discussion is long overdue. We've had the discussion. They just need to act on it. And more people need to be a part of it other than the physicians, to be frank with you. Get the sociologists and the scholars and the Bureau of Planning involved to look at this. I don't know. They don't have to recreate the wheel. There's a planning mechanism in place.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, it's a common topic here on the show during commercial break. Yeah.
And so let's just go ahead and dive right into this. We really gonna be getting $3 billion?
Yeah, those. So let me just.
Wow.
Let me preface this.
What did you say? Direct deposit, $3 billion?
Well, it's really. I tried to listen to. Of course, I was having my own press conference while Congressman San Nicolas was suddenly had his, and the question was that press conference is talking about a deal that hasn't yet matured. And of course, as we speak, we don't really know whether that, I hope that there's some kind of compromise between the White House and Speaker Pelosi. But if there is a compromise, it will be far less than that $3 billion that was discussed. So I believe, and I really want to say this clearly, that it was irresponsible on the part of Congressman Mike San Nicolas to talk about a package that is not yet done. It is irresponsible because it is conveying, it really is taking advantage of our anxieties and our concerns and giving us a sense of false hope. even going into that news conference, he must have known that whatever package would be resolved would be far less than what he was talking about. And so that's the essence of that. You know, the responsibility of a public official, and that's what we were just talking about, is to tell the truth, to be honest with people, to tell them what is actually going on, not to convey a sense that, you know, don't worry, I've got a bunch of things here that we're working on, and then knowing full well that those things were not really going to happen. And as we speak, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I hope that something happens. I really do, because Guam needs the relief. And then the obvious difference between what Delegate Sablan did in the Northern Marianas and what Delegate San Nicolas did from Guam. Delegate Sablan did a press release that announced what he was able to put into that legislation that was CNMI specific. Delegate San Nicolas cannot point to a single provision of that bill that is Guam specific. It is entirely a general bill. There's no specific Guam package. And as a consequence, the difference is really clear. And in addition to that, Delegate Sablan was able to get those provisions into the House bill while still being in Saipan. Imagine that. He was able to have the relationships with the House leadership to manage that process. And in the meantime, of course, Delegate San Nicolas has not seen me or Will personally since February.
Senator Wil?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. I always appreciate your insight. The key takeaway for me from the incumbent, is clearly in the lack of his communication directly with the Speaker of the Guam Legislature and the Governor of Guam herself. I found it pretty curious that there was no reference to even the Democrat Party, but that's okay. I'm not complaining about that part, Congressman. I just find it curious that you would find the expression to represent your thoughts on a particular measure that may not be accurately reflective of the territory's priorities. For example, speaking, to use your word, Congressman, prematurely on the dedication of certain monies for a new hospital. What that does is it puts to the back of the conversation all the options that were laid on the table in terms of how to deal with the GMH issue, the Z-Wing, hybrid opportunities with GRMC and so forth. So my point would be, we cannot achieve, as Senator Talahi had mentioned, one Guam approach if you're having a conversation with yourself and your staff. And I certainly hope that should you prevail, or should I be given the privilege to serve, that we keep open those lines of communication. And I agree with you. I've always said this, and I'm glad we're reinforcing this together, that strong regional partnerships are the key to leveraging additional resources for the territory and the Commonwealth. Congressman Kalili, but also Governor Torres. Governor Torres' reach into the White House and what they're able to do, because they have one common voice in terms of their agenda for the Commonwealth.
Amen.
I certainly hope and pray that whoever wins on November 4th, after it's announced, that we have that one Guam approach, regardless of your individual biases, partisanship, or otherwise.
Amen. I think that's so key. So key. I mean, imagine a perfect world where you would have a press conference and you would have like a congressman and a governor and maybe a speaker or senators together presenting on things. You know what's that saying? Promise the moon.
Well, he not only promised the moon, he's really exploiting the anxiety of people, because we're all concerned about our future. And he, in that press conference, he outlined a series of initiatives which intuitively, or even anyone who's paying attention to the process, knows that wasn't going to be the end result, even if the Speaker and the White House came to an agreement. It was going to come down significantly. And they're still in conversation. I hope something happens, but reducing that, just like Senator Castro pointed out, the whole notion of building a hospital, the whole idea of federal funds for to assist with the pandemic, and this is a general principle, and I'm sure anyone who works at this knows this, that the federal government doesn't supplant local responsibilities. It assists local responsibilities. It supplements. And this is not a capital improvement bill. This is a bill designed to help the hospital if they need it in reference to the coronavirus pandemic, not as a vehicle through which to build a whole new hospital. It's just mind-boggling that a sitting public official would just simply go and speak this way and not speak to local leaders, not speak to local experts, not speak and not communicate with them. And, you know, in reference to this information, accurate information, as you pointed out, Chris, is the necessity, is the necessary ingredient of determining positive public policy.
You know, I thought it was interesting because I feel like he did a similar press conference a few months ago when the HEROES Act was introduced, and he made, I think, similar promises, and I felt like I was watching the same press conference. But let me riddle you guys this. Let me play devil's advocate here. What would you say to those people who would say, oh, well, Robert Underwood, if you were the delegate, or, you know, Wil Castro, if you were the delegate, you would do the same thing. You would come out in the, you know, month before the election and say, hey, there's this great bill, and if it passes, we're going to get all this stuff. You're going to get $6 billion. You're going to get $6 billion direct deposit. Don't worry. It happened yesterday. Check your account.
Congressman, you want to defend your record? I'll come in after you, or I could go first.
You don't want none of this, Will?
Obviously, that's something that, the whole idea of being honest and have integrity is to not really just exaggerate anything. And again, I just want to point out that the obvious contrast between what Delegate Sablon did and Delegate San Nicolas did is that Delegate Sablon talked about what he did in the bill. Delegate San Nicolas simply read the bill that, as I understand it, he hasn't even co-sponsored. And that same bill is the bill that he had talked about, a couple of months ago as a reason why he needed to stay back in order to massage the bill, in order to work the bill. But in reality, those negotiations, those conversations are carried out, directly between Speaker Pelosi and representatives of the White House. No, it's the responsibility of public officials to always tell the truth. And and of course, that press conference was full of might, could, and then relying on a series of anxieties that we all have. We certainly hope that many of these things come to pass, but you wait until at least the bill is passed in the House, and it still hasn't even passed in the House, right. Although I understand they might be voting on it tonight. So, and it has, whatever passes in the House has no chance in the Senate. That's the other element of this.
Yeah, and so, Congressman Underwood, to your credit, one of the fondest memories I have when you serve, you're always addressing the people. So I'm gonna take a page out of your book if I have the privilege to serve. But I think, Chris, at the end of the day, the people just want an update. Whether you're making incremental steps forward or no steps forward, at least you're coming in periodically, keeping them informed. I find it very curious that you would weigh in at the 11th hour, 4 weeks out from the general election, to report as if this is something, something that just came out and it's revelational. And I'm not questioning his motive. What I am questioning is the leadership style. And I've always put that on the table. I find it curious that you'll mention just restaurants. I met with a restaurant owner. He has 7 establishments, and for which I haven't received. I should have asked him for some fundraising money. But my point would be, there are other industries here that are crippled and on both knees. The automotive, the motorcycle distributorship industry, they're on both knees. Our tourism industry, obviously. So where's the conversation about directing some of those federal funds to at least even try in a very closed economy, a specific area like Guam? So I have no problems with you making announcements and reporting periodically on what's going on, but I have a problem when you do it to your individual benefit to advance your campaign and give the pretense that, in fact, you're the responsible person for that. And by the way, Congressman Underwood, I found it curious too. I think you're right. that it would have a tough time passing the Senate because there are no, as I saw, Republican co-sponsors in the House bill. So that's something I would have done as a Republican candidate if I get the privilege to serve, to walk it through and parlay the differences of opinion and how we can come to a compromise. So at least try. And I would work with you, the Democrats, as well. I wouldn't just isolate the Republican Party of Guam. I'd work with our governor and our speaker and our future speakers, whoever they may be, on a bill that makes sense for the people of Guam. Yeah.
All right. Before we let you guys go, just real quick presidential debate. Just wanted to get your take. We'll start with you, Robert.
Well, it was a mess. The debate was a mess because, one guy kept interrupting the other guy. And so the commander-in-chief of interruption was able to look like he was a strong candidate to some people. But I think to most people who were watching it, they thought, well, this was not the way to conduct a debate. But I do want, and Senator Wil Castro is here as well, I do want to have debates. I personally want to have debates, and I want to have the opportunity to have debates in the coming weeks. The people of Guam need to compare and contrast and see what the ideas and the ideals are of the candidates, right, and see what they bring to the table. And I think a debate, 1, 2, 3 debates, help provide that opportunity. We'll see what happens in the next couple of debates, but obviously the president kept interrupting the vice president. The vice president interrupted a couple of times too, but not clearly as much. He jumped on the bed once or twice while the other guy was jumping on the bed all the time, and to use your reference.
Right on. Oh, thanks. Senator Wil.
In a nutshell, it was unusual to say the least. It was a lesson for me in terms of stylistic differences. I was able to pull away some policy positions on this. I do welcome, and I put it out publicly, I welcome the congressman, former congressman, and the incumbent to an open discussion at Swamp Road or Humatag Bay to have those differences of opinion. Although I will say if it's just the Congressman Underwood and I, that it's going to be a love fest because I actually appreciate these healthy exchange and we'll treat it well. But I do want to say, I want to encourage people to look at the long view of the record. I want to say, and I'm sure you share the same sentiment, Congressman, that we absolutely denounce and repudiate any systemic racism, any marginal treatment of all peoples. I'll give you a great example to bring it home. The marginal treatment of Chamorros and self-determination over a period of hundreds of years. That's a form of systemic and structural racism and marginalization. So to that, I say as a Republican, I denounce that. And I look forward to a healthy debate and discussion, Congressman Underwood. I have some words about Mr. Biden as well, but I'll spare the criticism. And I want to say,
why though? Come on.
Biden, my gosh, if it's true that he had an earpiece, listen, Mr. Biden is just as guilty as interrupting Mr. Trump. And I tell you, it's the pot calling the kettle black. And that's why Dr. Underwood and I, when we exchange, I always defer to this. But I'm not going to criticize the president. I think he's still strong on defense of the economy. He has an unchallenged record and the lowest unemployment record. And it wasn't fair, Mr. Biden, to say under President Trump, he handed us a broken economy. Of course it is. Look at ours. But that's not Luliangro's fault alone, is it? Right? You can thank the pandemic. It's how we get out of it that's going to really sing our praises as a community. And so I look forward to a healthy discussion with my colleague here, Dr. Underwood. And I encourage Mr. San Nicolas to come home and be with the people, be with the community, and let's have a discussion on how your record is different than Dr. Underwood's and how my record as a legislator in the Guam legislature is different from both of you, because I have some differences in terms of how to handle the pandemic from a federal congressional perspective, in terms of the economy, and they're kind of interlinked, aren't they? So I want to have that discussion, and not on Zoom. I want to be able to look at these two gentlemen in the eye, and right there on Humatag Bay with the rest of the people of Guam listening in. Thank you. I look forward to it. And God bless you.
A congressional debate.
I will take that picture with you in Manila.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, guys.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Wash your hands.
Have a great day.
I want to be
Have an honest day.
right. I want to be accurate today because it's Friday.
Accurate.
Okay, see you guys. So, wow, wouldn't that be something? A congressional debate on the shores of Humatag Bay because the beaches are open.
Only 5 people would be allowed to attend. That's, we'd be the camera crew. So
And it would just be you and the 3 candidates. Or so Yeah, I want to see some congressional debates. That's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting, right? Especially like a three, because there's no primary. It's just three guys.
You imagine if we actually did have three? Can you picture three?
I would
Do you
love
think
it.
we would actually have three?
Well, I just don't. I mean, I just don't really get it. Just debate the guys. Okay.
Can't even have a freaking forum
Yeah, nuts. Again, I know that
over Zoom.
Congressman San Nicolas definitely has some fans who follow our show here, and we just implore that you reach out to the delegate and ask him to just come on. You know, we repeatedly asked him. We repeatedly put out the invites for him to come on via Zoom.
No, I gotta say though, I appreciate him for allowing us into that press conference because Nestor got the invitation, and I
Right,
just asked him, "Hey, can you share me the link?" And then I jumped in.
Yeah.
So I got to watch a little bit of it, but
I mean, yeah, he let us into a press conference in the month before the election. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Yeah, 9:15. So we'll take a short break and get out and vote. Yes, you can. We're going to come back with the Guam Election Commission and tell you exactly how you can cast your